Hello, Internet. Hello, Internet. Hello, Internet. Na na ba da 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 dum. Um, anyway, hello, Internet. Welcome to week 3 of my October bingo. At the end of the month, how many bingos I get is how many books I can buy the next month. And this week, I read a total of 3 books. The first book I read was The Devil Wears Scrubs by Freida McFadden. Yeah, McFadden. So The Devil Wears Scrubs by Freida McFadden. This one is about a doctor person in training. She's doing her residency. And residencies, if you don't know, are awful. So the first book I read this week was The Devil Wears Scrubs by Freida McFadden. This stars a woman named Jane who is doing her residency at a hospital to become a doctor. I guess technically she is already a doctor. I'm not 100. I guess you become a doctor and then you do your residency. But anyway, she's doing her residency and life sucks because residencies are awful. Like 30-hour shifts are normal and I can barely stand an 8-hour shift. So if there's any doctors out there, kudos to you. But anyway, she is having a rough time. Her mentor residency person is being very curt with her and has no patience and stuff like that. Thinks she's the most awful person in the world. Um, she has some troublesome patients once, and then she has some troublesome patient. She has some troublesome patients, and then of course she also so it's being rough. The senior residency person named Allison seems to low-key hate her. She thinks she's incompetent, always is critiquing what she's doing. And then she has some patients that are troublesome. And then she also has met this jerk face of a haughty surgeon person, residency person, who is, as I said, a jerk face, but is also hot. So she starts hooking up with him. And I thought it was very well done. The characters were very real. The pure exhaustion of doing all of that felt real. I have no idea if Freida McFadden has actually been done a medical track or if she just talked to a lot of medical people, but it felt very real. I say as someone who has no medical training and has never been in that field and doesn't even know that many in that field, but from what I have gleaned, it felt very real. Um, I was a little disappointed with the ending, and that was mostly because it didn't feel like it resolved anything. This is partially because there's other books. There's at least one other book. Um, so the main conflict I would say would be with Allison, her senior mentor person in the residency, and there was a climax with that, and then there was a resolution, but the resolution in my mind didn't really resolve anything. And that might be a little bit more accurate to life. There are people that we blow up on or have moments with that it really doesn't resolve things, or we don't have those moments. But um, as a reader of a book, I felt just a little dissatisfied where they didn't. I don't know. And then there didn't really resolve any things with the hot surgeon guy, which is what she calls him throughout the majority of the book. His name is actually Ryan something or another. Can't remember if Ryan's the first or last name. But that one I do believe will be more addressed in the next book. So that one I think bothers me a little less, but in the epilogue it shows I don't know how far in the future, but it's far enough in the future where she is a mentor person rather than the mentoree. And so I doubt Allison is around, so I don't think that will ever be resolved more than it is. So I could be wrong, and I should probably read the next book. But as a first book, I was just kind of that's it. So I only gave it 3 stars because of that. Otherwise, it probably would have been 3.5 stars. Um, and then the next book I read is called The Return of Ellie Black. This one is a bit more heavier. It's about a girl who has been gone for 2 years and she just reappears in the woods. And the main point of view character, it cycles through a bunch of different point of views, but the main point of view character I would say belongs to the detective. I don't remember the detective's name, but it belongs to the detective who's assigned to Ellie Black's case, and she's trying to figure out more about like who did this to you, where have you been, you know. And as the book progresses, we find out it's bigger and more than a lot of people might suspect. It's not just a one-off case. And so the detective becomes more and more frantic. The detective herself has a history where her sister went missing and was murdered when she was young. So she is very has emotional baggage as well. So in general, darker suspense things are not what I gravitate towards for reading. I tend to prefer the fun, lighter one, but this one was very well done. The pacing moved forward. I thought the reveal of what was happening was good. I didn't predict the ending. I often do, but I also don't I tend to read books like this, so maybe not in these sort of books. I don't tend to predict it. But I thought I wasn't like I was surprised, but I wasn't like, when it's poorly written, like a reveal and you're just like, I don't see it. I did see it once it was revealed. I just didn't guess it beforehand. So I thought it did a really good job. Um I just realized I didn't put A Devil Wears Scrubs or The Return of Ellie Black. I just realized I didn't put The Devil Wears Scrubs on the bingo board. So let's pull that up real quick. The problem is both The Devil Wears Scrubs and The Return of Ellie Black don't fill in any of the spots in the middle, like on the board, other than the middle one, which is a book. And of the two, I preferred Ellie Black. I gave it 4 stars, The Return of Ellie Black. So I'm going to go ahead and put that one in the middle. And The Devil Wears Scrubs just isn't going to end up on the bingo board. And then the last book I read this week was Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. This one is about a guy named Wallace. He was a lawyer, and he has a heart attack and dies. And before he has a heart attack, he's a bit of a jerk. We start the book with him firing someone who is going through a rough time. That's the best way to show how much of a jerk someone is. But and then he becomes a ghost, and this Reaper comes and brings him to this kind of way station where there is what's the word that they used? There's a guide person. What did they call the guide? A ferryman. And the ferryman's name. Maybe I should really write notes on all these names before I do these things. There's a ferryman. I want to say Leo, but it's not Leo. Is it Theo? I just finished this. I'm going to feel better if his name ends in EO, but it's not Leo or Theo. Da, 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 da. Hugo. It did end in an O. I feel a little better, but it's not Theo or Leo, just Hugo. Anyway, so he meets this ferryman named Hugo. His job is to kind of help him ease, like, the transition between the life and the next stage. So he's just kind of staying at this tea shop while he figures out his feelings, which end up developing into a love for Hugo. I don't think that's a spoiler. It becomes pretty obvious pretty quickly that he's into Hugo. And, yeah. I'm not sure what else to say about it. It, like, plot-wise. There's more going on, obviously. He runs across people, in situations where he gets to learn some empathy and love, which he didn't really learn very well when he was alive. And so it's a very introspective book. There's a lot of talking about your feelings, which is fine. It's not the fastest paced book, so if you're only into action stuff, that's not really the thing for you. I rated this 4 stars. Just it's not personally a book that I like a whole lot, but it is extremely well done. So 3.5 for my enjoyment, and then the extra half star because it's just very well written. Um, there's a very strong atmosphere. The characters were all very well done. They all felt like people. My favorite was May, um, but and Nelson. But I'm not sure what else to say. Um, I did like how his progression felt natural and the things that helped him move forward and um, all felt realistic to me. So as for the bingo board, there isn't a whole lot of spots left that I could put it, but but there's not a whole lot of spaces left that I could put it, but it is written by a male, so we're going to put this under written by a male. So we have The Return of Ellie back for just a book, and then we have TJ Klune's. So added to the bingo board this week, we have The Return of Ellie Black for a book, and then for a male writer, Under the Whispering Door. Originally, when I was making this bingo board, the suggestion they had was a female writer, but 90% of what I read is by female authors, so I changed it to male author. But and then the devil. Not the best at remembering these names. The Devil Wears Scrubs is just on the side. It's our first book that doesn't get on the bingo board, which means that I just need to read a fantasy or a classic story retelling, and I do have at least one bingo for the month. And yeah, I hope you join me for next week.